How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to your favorite weekly horoscope, this time for August 30th through September 5th of 2021. My name is Cam White. Thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. If you want to know what's going on for September, for your whole month, as we're going into the new month, become a patron. I have monthly horoscopes for all of the zodiac signs over on my Patreon. They're already up as well. This week, I'm going to be posting my Mercury retrograde in Libra horoscope video that I usually do when Mercury goes retrograde. But if you're a patron, you already got that video a long time ago, and my patrons are also going to get some more content that is going to be coming out very, very early, and I won't be posting here on YouTube for a while. So if you're interested to see what any of that's about, go ahead and become a patron over my Patreon. Thank you for those that do support me. I truly love and appreciate every single one of you. I'm very grateful for you guys. And also you guys just here on YouTube too, because you watch me talk every single week. So let's talk about what's going on this week. As you noticed in the thumbnail, I'm pretty happy. Okay, for everyone who's asking astrologers, when is it going to be better? When are things life is always bad. It's just about where it's at and at what point it's coming and where it's coming from, right? But this week really isn't all of that bad. I think this week has a lot of good stuff to talk about. And it really starts with Monday. On Monday, we start the week off with Mercury ingressing into Libra while simultaneously having the moon make a trine to Venus. So yeah, like I said, that's pretty great, right? Here we are on Monday. Mercury is now in Libra. Mercury, I think, actually went to Libra Sunday night at some point, but, I'm not going to talk about Mercury ingressing into Libra at the very end of the week in my weekly horoscope. But we start off Monday with Mercury ingressing into Libra. We got to talk about Mercury, our mindset, our rationality, how we communicate, the way that we communicate a message. And as Mercury goes into Libra, Mercury in Virgo is much more focused on being right. Mercury in Libra is much more focused on the message getting across. Mercury in Virgo is very nitpicky, very specific. It can communicate. Mercury in Virgo is very efficient at communicating. It's very exact when it comes to communication. And Mercury in Libra isn't really necessarily worried about communicating things in an exact form. Mercury in Libra is much more worried about saying things with the charm, being able to say things politely. For example, I can look at you, let's say you got something in your teeth, and I could say, you've got food in your teeth. That's gross. That's very Mercury and Virgo, right? But Mercury and Libra could just be just doing something, making a nonverbal communication almost, especially with body language. It's really important, in my opinion, when it comes to Mercury, the way talking isn't the only way that we speak language. It's not the only form of communication. There are many forms and many modes of communication, and Mercury is going to be representing those, right? And as Mercury goes into Libra, while Venus is in Libra, this is communicating in a much more polite and a much more nicer tone. I cannot talk today. And Mercury in Libra too, I think our thoughts are going to get a little bit more relaxed. And, for example, with Mercury in Virgo, I was kind of talking about last week, it's very big back to school energy. And for me with Mercury going to Virgo, I was making my schedule and trying to do everything to this, crossing my T's, dotting my I's. Mercury in Libra is not about things being perfect, but just things working. You know what I mean? You can sit here, for example, with diets and stuff like that. Cause I'm, really getting into my nutrition and stuff like that. You can have an exact specific diet, and you can be really, really stressed out about it, or you can do what works for you, right? You have to have a little bit of balance of, doing the thing that you need to do, but then also not stressing yourself out over every single meal and every single macro. Mercury in Libra is much more about hey, Mercury in Libra is not everything can be perfect, but what can we do? How can we make things right? How can we make things just? That is with our communication. That's even with our mindset too, and our rationale. It's much more about what's just going to work, what's going to be more enjoyable, what's going to be more pleasurable, right? And I really like that as we get into Monday, because I really think that's going to really set the precedent for the week. Not to mention on Monday, the moon is also going to be applying to Venus all day. Moon's in Gemini. We're learning, we're talking, we're communicating. It's trining Venus. This is a very big social energy. communicating what needs to be said, being able to actually communicate and express things, those things being well received as well, because maybe sometimes, when Mercury, it's what's super important about communication is that it's being received. You could talk all day long and say all the right words, but if the person you're talking to isn't open to receiving that information, what's the point of having the conversation? This is really receptive. I really like Monday. Moon's going to be in Gemini. I think our minds are just going to be going a million miles an hour. It's leaving Rahu, going up towards Venus. This is really like, oh, this is fun, and this is fun, and this is exciting, and this is exciting. It's like when you haven't seen a friend in a long time, and then you just catch up on everything, and it's just like, you go, like, there's just so much you got to catch up on that you forget to talk about everything, but you're just so in the moment, right? That's what Monday looks like. I really like Monday, truly. Now, as we get into Tuesday, As we get into Tuesday, as you can see, it really is just the moon making a trine to Jupiter before it ingresses into Cancer. Really, the moon technically will probably go into Cancers like super duper late on Tuesday night, but that is depending on what coast you're on and what part of the world you're in. So I just saved it for Wednesday. But anyway, if we look at Tuesday, the moon's just going to be at that last degrees of Gemini, making that trine to Jupiter. And I'm loving it. I really like this. I think, especially too, I talk a lot about how it's, not everything's bad and everything's good all the time. And it's just about understanding when and where it's all going down. I think with some days like this, yes, we're, not to say that everyone's life is going perfect right now. But the way I would look at this is because there's so many like trines and this air energy, this might feel much more better than it is. Like, I think I made this comment, I think last week actually. But I said it not too long ago in a horoscope or something where it's like, maybe you dated someone really, really shitty and then you got in a relationship and maybe that one, like maybe they weren't that great, but comparatively speaking, it felt amazing. You're like, wow, this is so much better than what I'm used to. And it's not even that great but it's just because what you were used to is so crappy. It just makes that new experience so much better. This is what I think Monday and Tuesday is really like. It's like, maybe not everything is super awful for you right now, but I really look at this as like, this is nice. And I think we're going to be kind of like, wow, this is really nice. This is a nice little moment of, I don't want to say even relaxation or non-stress. I mean, we still have Mars opposite Neptune, which we're going to get to, but the moon is literally going to be separating from Venus and separating from a trine to Venus and then applying to a trine with Jupiter. I like it. Venus is like, hey, this is fun. We can connect. We can embrace each other. We can mesh things together. And with the moon in Gemini trining Jupiter and Aquarius, it's like when both parties want to harmonize and bring things together, it's easy. Like when both parties want peace, it's easier to integrate things, right? And that's really how I kind of see this moon in Gemini. It's like, okay, you don't want to fight, right? And you don't want to fight, right? Okay, well, let's come together with something. Let's actually communicate talk about what we need to talk about. I think the moon in Gemini trining Jupiter is, on Monday as we have the moon trine Venus, that's kind of like, okay, we're communicating in ways that are making connections. And then as the moon makes that trine to Jupiter, this is like, how do we bring the big picture together? How do we, again, also too, Jupiter is about our faith. Jupiter is about our trust. And it's in Aquarius right now where we're really thinking about our communities. We're really thinking about the people that we associate with. Where do we stand with, groups of people versus, how we individually think? Where do we need to where do we need to really come into the picture? Like Jupiter and Aquarius, Saturn's in Aquarius right now, right? So there's a lot of our lives are being defined by a lot of, our communities, our structures around our ideas, our structure or our limitations and the way that we kind of have to discipline ourselves with our thoughts, with our ideas. And as Jupiter's there, this is more than just, about, I don't want to say just like, oh, how do you operate in community and, where are your strengths within community? But Jupiter being there is like, how do you bring the big picture together? Where can you trust other people and where can you not trust other people, right? You have the greater benefic Jupiter and the greater malefic Saturn in Aquarius. So it really is, two sides to a coin. There is a good side to the Aquarius stuff and there's a bad side to the Aquarius stuff. But I think this moon making a trine to Jupiter is seeing the bright side to it, seeing the good side to it, which, again, in this circumstance, Tuesday is going to feel really good comparatively to the rest of the weeks, even though this isn't like the most amazing day ever. Which that leads us to Wednesday. And on Wednesday, as you can see, it's just going to be the moon ingressing into Cancer, immediately applying to a square with Mercury. Now, the moon going into Cancer is going to be a little interesting, in my opinion. But the moon, our emotions, how we feel, and this can be subconscious too, right? Like you're not always aware of how you feel. You might feel something and you may not know where that feeling's coming from or why you feel that feeling. The moon literally rules the darkness, Saturn rules the darkness, but the moon lights up the dark, right? The moon is, kind of helping us stay connected to what we don't always see. And I think as the moon's in Cancer, we're going to feel much more comfortable. I think we're going to feel much more maybe safe with our emotions. It's kind of like how, this is something I was thinking. This isn't, I don't want to say inappropriate, but it is a little, I don't want to say harsh. Maybe inappropriate is a good word. Have you ever been traveling and you can't like maybe you like staying at someone's house that you don't know and you can't poop? Like your body's just too stressed out like to even like function. Like you have to, there's like a transitionary period. Like the moon in Cancer is like when you are in your own comfortable space and it's like but you know what I'm talking about? There's a bodily reaction. Like it's not like you don't want to go poop, but like you're stressed out. Like your body is under like a certain stress so you can't do it. The moon going into Cancer is like that stress relieving itself. Like that laxative kicking in. The moon in Cancer is like, okay, I'm feeling comfortable. I'm much more in tune with my body, much more in tune with my emotions. And with the moon squaring Mercury, though, I think the big thing with this is just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean you need to express it, right? I can't tell you. I have a lot of stories of people saying things to me at very inappropriate times. One time like this at my dad's funeral, this woman who was like my dad's best friend's ex-wife just said the fucking shit. Like I smoked a cigarette after I gave it my dad's eulogy and she was like, "Oh, don't smoke those. You're going to end up like your dad." And I was like, I mean, I was not there at that moment, but it's just one of those things where like, can you shut up? Like you fucking bitch. Anyway, and I look at this as the moon in Cancer squaring Mercury and Libra. Just because you feel a certain way, don't mean you need to say it. Shut up. Keep the peace. Like you don't have to tell people how you really feel. You actually don't. In fact, it's actually better sometimes to keep your mouth shut and not tell people how you actually feel in order to keep the peace, right? And I think the moon in Cancer squaring Mercury and Libra is just like, just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean you need to go and fuck everything up, make everything more uncomfortable for everybody else, right? And so this is one of those days with the moon in Cancer squaring Mercury and Libra. Just because you feel a certain way, that doesn't mean you need to rock the boat. Be a little bit patient. And also, feelings are fleeting. Like, the big thing I want to bring up with this is, as the moon's squaring Mercury, just because you feel something right here in that moment, that doesn't mean that feeling is the ultimate truth. Feelings come and go. You know what I mean? You can see something that all of a sudden stokes jealousy in your body. And maybe you're not a jealous person, but you could still feel that jealousy coming. Now, are you going to immediately act on that jealousy? No. Maybe, but I think that would be inappropriate and really immature. And I think the moon squaring Mercury is like, hey, just hold on. Like, just because you feel something, let that feeling come, let that feeling go. And if that feeling's still there, then maybe you could say something. And I think that's where we'll come into Thursday. But let your feelings come and, see if they're going to last that long. A lot of people nowadays, it's like, man, the second they feel something, they got to do it right then and there just because their feelings. And oh my God, my feelings. Like, stop. Your feelings come and go. Like, they're literally just a register, right? You don't have to act on every single feeling you have. That's why Mars is in fall in Cancer. You're not supposed to push buttons and do things just because you feel a certain way. Like, let the feelings come, feel the feelings. That's the moon in Cancer time, right? But then let those feelings, sit for a minute and think about them. Have some rationality behind your actions and how you connect your feelings and your emotions with the actions that you take, with the fights or the, like the fights that you cause or the peace that you try to create. which that leads us to Thursday, really. On Thursday, like I said, the moon is going to be squaring Venus as Mars goes opposite Neptune. I like it for the most part. You know, as the moon squares Venus in Libra, this might be like the moon's in Cancer. You feel a certain way, and it's going to be squaring Venus in Libra. You just can't, like, you might, this is one of those things where don't maybe do it on Wednesday, but maybe if it continues into Thursday, then maybe you can say something, because I think Venus in Libra is like, how can we, like, you know, maybe if you're feeling hurt or you're feeling upset, like, don't rage out and don't, like, just let your emotions overwhelm you. But this is like, let your emotions be heard and try to find some way to balance things out. Like, Venus in Libra is like, okay, Venus in Libra is interested in making peace. Venus in Libra has a vested interest literally in creating peace, creating harmony. There is a reward that Venus gets for those things. And as the moon gets and the moon's in Cancer, the moon gets a reward for expressing itself, for being in tune with its feelings. And as the moon's in Cancer squaring Venus in Libra, is like, your feelings may kind of go against the peace that's there. How you feel or how you react, especially how you react, because, you know, just because the moon's in, you know, Cancer, that doesn't always mean good emotions, right? Like, that just means you're going to be really feeling it. And I think as you're really feeling it, squaring Venus in Libra, you know, maybe that does require you to rock the boat, depending on what your chart looks like. Maybe that requires you to kind of say what you have to say, even if it does disturb the peace. But I think also for a lot of other people, like, if what you're feeling is going to, like, disturb the peace, like, you know, politely excuse yourself. You get out of there, rather than, like, in my opinion, like, just don't ruin it for everybody. You know what I mean? That's so, I don't know, selfish, but hey, you know, maybe that's the type of person you are and you like to ruin things for people. But I think as the moon squaring Venus, there is this kind of, like, you know how you feel. I think, and you know, not to say, like, again, I think on Wednesday, just because you feel a certain way, wait for it. I think on Thursday, you're going to be pretty decided on how you feel about something, and it's squaring Venus. I think that's going to, and I think that's going to, it goes against the peace. Whether that means you cause disharmony, I think that's kind of up to you. But I think with the moon and Cancer squaring Venus, you can politely excuse yourself without causing a disruption, without causing disharmony in whatever area this is in your life. And let's talk about Mars opposite Neptune. Now, I was personally, you know, someone wanted me to put out that video I did about, like, the vaccine thing, and, like, I was wrong about that. About the Mercury Mars conjunction in Virgo. I thought that would be the announcement of the FDA approval. And the only reason I brought that, I even, you know, had that video kind of ready, was I was wanting to see if that would be it, because the Mercury Mars conjunctions are going to continue. There's going to be more news about this vaccine, and I know some people are annoyed of it, but also a lot of you also have a lot of things around it. You know, your work's going to, you know, require it. Plus, there's going to be, you know, vaccine passports. So it's a bigger thing. And I look at this Mars Neptune opposition, and I think a lot of this is going to be a two-way street. There's going to be a lot of things that become very clear. There's a lot of things that are very real. Like, okay, this is what is, and I don't want to push any narrative here. Neither side, truly. I truly try to be not, you know, on any side with this. But I look at Neptune and Pisces being about illusion, being about fantasy, being about deception, right? And Mars in Virgo opposite Neptune is, like, definitely trying to fight the deception with facts. And that might be, and that's how both sides are going to see the story, right? This is what's hard about this, is one side thinks they're right and the other side thinks they're right. So however I'm talking right now, you guys are going to construe that however way you kind of construe it. But I really think with Mars opposite Neptune, there's going to be some type of information revealed, some type of, you know, probably some type of data comes out that either, I don't want to say that clear things up, because I don't think this really clears anything up. I think Mars in Virgo is like, but I have this, and but it says this, and this paperwork says this, and it's just like, it doesn't mean anything anymore. You can have a study that proves literally anything that you kind of want nowadays. And I think Mars opposite Neptune is just, I think you're going to see some type of information comes out, and I think with both sides, it's just going to make things worse, make things more confusing, really. But I would assume that this is going to be a pretty big deal in the news. Now, personally for you guys, I think Mars opposite, you know, Neptune, Mars in Virgo, the only way to clear something up is for you, you know, it's for really for you to kind of do it. Mars in Virgo, opposite Neptune in Pisces, is so like when you can have a hands-on experience, when you can, for example, Neptune in Pisces is the unknown, right? Like you can never prepare for the unknown. For example, like right now, well, I don't want to use a personal story I have. Well, I would just say with Mars in Virgo, well, here, for example, for me right now, I'm really getting into like just preparedness. I'm not like a doomsday prepper, but I look around, I'm like, I could be more ready for something. You know what I mean? And for me, I have like with Neptune and Pisces, there's this sense of like, oh, just forget about it, don't worry about it. But then there's this also sense, well, there's all this illusion, there's all this confusion. Like the biggest thing with Neptune and Pisces is like, if you want to stay confused, you're allowed to do that. But Mars and Virgo is like, you won't feel so lost or confused about something if you just like learn about it, right? Like things can be very overwhelming, things can be very confusing, but if you just take little simple actions that can lift the veil of cloudiness or foggy judgment. And Mars and Virgo is like, you won't feel so scatterbrained about something if you're just like prepared for it. Like that's very Mars, like it's very Mars and Virgo of me to kind of like get like, some medical stuff, a trauma kit or like a first aid kit. Like it's just, if the more prepared I feel, the more I feel ready for what I don't know, right? And I'm not a big person of like, oh, live in fear, the end of the world's type coming. That's you guys pretty much know my opinions about that. But Mars and Virgo, if you want to clear up things that are confusing, if you want to clear up things that you're uncertain about, take action to do it. Learn something, do something. Just do the necessary actions that it takes to clear up whatever fog or confusion that you have. And I think with Mars opposite Neptune, there's this sense of doing something for yourself to alleviate any stress of the unknown, to alleviate any uncertainty in your life. You know what I mean? Like at least now, for me, if I go and get like a bag or whatever, I got something. You know what I mean? And that makes me feel a little bit better to where at least, hey, I don't know when anything's going to happen. I don't know if anything would happen, but at least I've got something, and that makes me feel much more clear about a situation that I have a lot of uncertainty over, right? And that's just my own personal story with it. I don't really know how else to kind of analogize Mars and Virgo opposite Neptune, as though, like you'll just feel more clear about things if you take care of the things to be more like, Neptune and Pisces. If you are very uncertain of the future, do something that will make you feel a little bit more certain about it. You know what I mean? Which brings us to Friday. Moon's going to go into Leo. Awesome. I'm loving that. And the moon's going to go opposite Saturn. So, you guys know I've really been talking about when the moon transits like Taurus or Scorpio or Leo or even Aquarius, that it makes these harsh aspects to the Saturn-Uranus thing. But I kind of really like this because as the moon goes into Leo, we're much more focused about like our passion, our pride, our ego, but we're emotionally invested into our identity. We're emotionally invested into like feeling good and like expressing ourselves from the authentic heart place, right? And as the moon is... Sorry, there's a lot of screaming going on outside my house. I'm having some weird Saturn in my third house stuff lately with my neighbors, and it's kind of like trippy. More on that maybe later. But the moon's going to go into Leo, into your, I almost said into your ninth house. The moon's going to go into Leo, right? We're feeling expressive. We're feeling prideful. We're feeling like, our hearts are invested. The moon's going to be sextiling Mercury. We're going to be able to express that. I think, having the conversations on Friday will feel very like pump up, like your ego will definitely get a nice stroke. But then the moon's also going to be going opposite Saturn. There's also the sense of like being able to really define things, understand the contrast between you and yourself and other people. The moon is, opposite Saturn is also going to make you feel really pressured to be serious. And really take yourself maybe a little bit more seriously than you need to take things, but I think that's okay. But the moon opposite Saturn, you might feel pressured, you might feel like very serious. Again, that's okay, but just lighten up a little bit. I think the moon sextiling Mercury is, you might feel like, okay, I got to be really serious about addressing this thing here. And then you realize, oh, you didn't need to be serious because the people that you were talking to or the things that you need to address, the people are very receptive of that information. So, don't get your chest too pumped up, but feel good. You put your ego first in a few different ways, I don't want to say put your ego first, like, just focus on that. But you guys know what I'm saying. Yeah, and then the moon doesn't actually square Uranus till later on either. So I'm not too like there's enough distance between Saturn and Uranus now to where the moon will hit the moon hitting Saturn is different from the moon hitting Uranus. It's not just like a pinball effect here. But Friday, again, I like Friday. I really do. Moon's making that fire and air. Things are just working. Which brings us to Saturday on September 4th. That's when we're going to be having the moon make that square to Uranus as Mercury trines Saturn. And I have that highlighted. I think this is one of the best parts of this week is Mercury trining Saturn. As we get to Saturday, the moon squaring Uranus. We know that you got to expect the unexpected. And while you might be emotionally invested into something and you might be emotionally invested into your way of doing things, it just doesn't always work like that. Like the moon in Leo squaring Uranus is like, yeah, you could feel prideful, but don't put all your eggs in one basket just because it's what you feel like. Because moon squaring Uranus is like, it's not going to be stable. It's just not going to be as consistent as you want it to be. And so if you're like expecting consistency, don't expect it. I think the moon in Leo too during this time squaring Uranus is, be careful about how much you emotionally invest yourself into your ego, into your pride. It's really easy with the moon in Leo to just be like, this is how I feel. And it could really shake things up. It doesn't need to be that way, especially because Mercury is trining Saturn. If you can just have a friendly conversation, I think get over your pride. I think get over your, maybe it's jealousy, maybe it's hate, whatever it is. And you're more interested in making a connection and building bridges. You're going to have a lot more success here. Venus is also on Spica. We love Venus on Spica. Like this is Saturday. I really like Saturday. Truly. Saturdays are really, like I said, I fucking like this week. I really like this week. It's hard for me to even complain about this week. Sure, it's not the best week in the world. And sure, there's still a pandemic going on and economic devastation and, all of these things that are going on in the world. It's super easy. But at least this week, there's a lot of harmony that can take place. And also too, just as a side note, if you are struggling to find the good in things right now, you're not going to make it through this winter. It's going to be a hard winter. I can't stress that enough. You have to challenge yourself as a human being to not find the positive in things. And I'm a big person of don't just ignore the problems in this world. Because my parents like to do that. They like to just live in their own little bubble and be like, oh, there's no problems as long as we believe in God and Jesus, which I think does more harm than it does good. But then there's people that only want to focus on the bad and that make you feel like a bad guy for saying, hey, look at the bright side. But you as an individual, this is going to be a difficult winter where you're going to hear this and that, and you're going to be very fearful and dreadful. If you can't find the good in things now, you're going to have a hard time. And I think it's going to be up to you to really try to make positive, motions right now. Really try to find the good in things and just enjoy things. It's hard to do that nowadays, truly. And I know I don't speak for everyone when I say that because some people are having the time of their life. Some people are losing everything at the moment. Astrology really is a quite diverse group of people. But this is just one of those times where with Mercury and Libra, say what you gotta say. But you don't have to be a dick. You don't have to say it mean. Mercury's in Libra. Try to make the peace. Go out on a ledge and, befriend someone. Say something nice. And Mercury's trining Saturn here. I think that can be received really, really well. But the biggest thing here too that I'm going to tell people is stop judging people too. You got the moon in Leo, Mercury and Venus in Libra. And Mercury and Venus in Libra, Libra just loves to think that they're on a high horse when it comes to judgment. And I mean, same thing with Saturn and Jupiter and Aquarius. Judge people for how you interact with them and as far as setting up your boundaries with where you let people in, where you let people out. But, just take off the judgment with stuff, really. Be nicer at some point. Try to have understanding. Try to have sympathy and empathy. That's what's really annoying about both sides of the conversation for all of the conversations is both sides are rah, 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 just hate. And it's again, I can't express this enough. There is more money to be made in me and you hating each other than there is with all of us hating the things that actually make our lives more miserable, like governments and corporations that have a vested interest in our misery. So instead of attacking the people that are around you, try to make some peace. The people around you might come in handy one day. And I think this is the time. This isn't the time to choose violence. This isn't the time to be an asshole. Make some fucking peace. Don't we need that too? Like, everyone's just so up each other's asses nowadays that it's just really frustrating. Anyway, I know I rant on that a lot, and thank you guys for your patience with me, but you guys get it. Anyway, moving on. I really like Saturday. Again, I really like this week, and I think Saturday, a lot of things really work out in a positive way, which leads us to Sunday. And on Sunday, the moon's going to go opposite Jupiter. The moon's going to then go into Virgo as Venus squares Pluto, which is really interesting. So, again, the moon's going to be opposite Jupiter, where it's like, hey, I can get my needs met and other people can get their needs met. It's a win-win. The moon's literally going to be separating from Venus and applying to Jupiter again. So there is this, literally, there's a lot of winning this week. If you allow that into your life, there's a lot of people I know in their lives where they can have literally God descend from heaven and hand them a bouquet of everything they want. And they're like, no. Like, a lot of you guys really do make life much more harder than it really needs to be because you guys are really stubborn and selfish, but I'm just teasing you guys. Try to make things easier. You can have a win-win situation. Everyone's feelings can be met. Everyone can, enjoy things. And I think as the moon's opposite Jupiter, separating from Venus, Venus is also pretty much on Jupiter. Venus's exact trine to Jupiter is going to be happening over Sunday night into Monday morning, which we're going to talk about next week. But the moon will, again, trining Venus, opposite Jupiter. Love that. We're all feeling good, right? Mars is also trining Pluto. That's a lot of power. There's a reason why people do a lot of things for power because it feels good. And I think Mars and Virgo trining Pluto, doing things by Mars and Virgo, for me, if I'm prepared for any type of situation, I'm going to feel more powerful. I'm going to feel more protected. I'm going to feel good, right? And I think that's what a lot of the Mars trine Pluto is. And the moon will also go into Virgo, where we're getting into a new moon. We're resetting our attention. The energy is lowering and we're focusing on this Virgo space in our lives. What do we need to clean up? Where do we need to get organized? This is, again, big back to school energy. And, on Sunday, the last thing I want to bring up is Venus squaring Pluto. I don't remember if I talked about this in my monthly horoscopes. I might have. But why I brought it up was Venus is stationing retrograde on Pluto this winter. I don't shut up about this. I know. I'm sorry. But Venus squaring Pluto, I'm curious as to what maybe might come up in the news that might be important later on. I don't think that this is real. I think Venus, in Libra squaring Pluto is being able to harness in all of the crazy stuff by making peace. Pluto in Capricorn is Venus in Libra is hey, instead of us blowing up and being mad, let's have dinner. Maybe something bad happens. You're oh, let's distract that with some good things. And I'm not really too worried about Venus squaring Pluto for personally for you guys. I'm just more curious about it. If anything in the news is going to show up that might become important when Venus stations on Pluto. That's just me, though, thinking in astrological terms. I would love to know what you guys might think Venus squaring Pluto might be when Venus actually stations retrograde, but let me know. I also just want to know what you guys think of this week in general in the comments below. Anyway, I feel like a lot of you guys don't actually, some of you guys are telling me what's up. A lot of you guys don't. But that's this week. And next week, we have the new moon in Virgo. Like I said, we're going to be getting much more organized. We're going to get we're going to get our shit together, essentially. Or at least I'm going to get my shit together. I'm going to actually use the new moon in Virgo. Get organized, get clear, cross your T's, dot your I's. Mercury enters shadow next week. Love that. Again, I don't want to say again because you guys know because the Mercury video, my Mercury retrograde video comes out next week. But, I like the Mercury's going to enter shadow. So whatever conversations you have, whatever connections you make next week are going to come back up over the next few weeks. Venus trines Jupiter. Hallelujah. We haven't had that in a while. We love Venus trining Jupiter with Venus in her home sign. But then Venus goes into Scorpio and the fun times go away. Like I said, it's all about getting as much fun and enjoyment as you can while it lasts. Venus in Scorpio squaring Saturn in Aquarius isn't going to feel good. It's not. But that's, of course, going to be for another 2 or 3 weeks away from all this stuff. So I won't, I'll talk about that later on. But that's what I got for you guys. That's what's going on this week. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. And I'll be seeing you next week.